wonder if anyone in Oklahoma in 1907 knew the history of the man that was appointed Oklahoma's highest-ranking military official, the Adjutant General. For 8 years, from 1907, Frank Canton served the state of Oklahoma, running the military department, and according to state law, he was only answerable to the governor. But Frank hid a very dark past. Just 30 years prior, he was robbing banks, stealing cattle, committing assault, and killing buffalo soldiers in shootouts in the street. Frank's real name was Joe Horner. In the late 1860s, he was working as a cowboy, taking herds from Texas to Kansas. It was tough, dangerous work, and he mixed with tough characters who didn't always follow the law. By 1871, he had drifted into cattle rustling and robbery. In 1874, in the rough little town of Jacksboro, Texas, Frank and a few friends got into a gunfight with some buffalo soldiers. When the smoke had cleared, one cavalry soldier was dead and another had been badly wounded. In 1877, Frank was incarcerated for robbing the bank at Comanche, Texas. Somehow, he escaped from the Texas Rangers and disappeared back into the cattle outfits, working as a cowboy far away from the law. On one drive to Nebraska, he went and got his name officially changed to Frank Canton from Joe Horner. Frank then bought a small ranch near Ogallala and raised cattle, but the call of adventure must have been calling, and he left to become a stock detective, as he knew a thing or two about rustling for the powerful Wyoming Stock Growers Association. Always a man of action, he took on the role of sheriff of Johnson County. Immediately, he went about enforcing the will of the Cattle Association, for whom everyone knew he still worked for. In 1892, he helped lead a raid of 50 hired killers from Texas on unsuspecting ranchers who belonged to the Wyoming homesteaders. The killers were hired by the Wyoming stock growers to kill the homesteaders, whom they branded rustlers for the crime of rounding up unbranded cattle on the range. When the 50 men arrived in drizzling rain at the ranch of Nathan D. Nate Champion, they set up in positions around the ranch house. Some men hid in a ravine, others went to a stable close to the house. There were 4 people in the ranch house that night: Nate Champion and his young ranch hand Nick Ray, and 2 trappers who had spent the night while traveling through the area. At dawn, with the rain still tumbling down, one of the trappers left the house with a bucket to fetch water. As he passed the stable, he was grabbed by the Texas gunmen. After a time, when he hadn't returned to the house, the other trapper went looking for him. He, too, was captured. The killers demanded to know who was left in the house, as Champion was on their hit list. Finding that their intended victims were still inside and no other innocents present, they decided to kill them on sight when they left the building. As the young ranch hand stepped out of the house, he was shot down by a 17-year-old boy who went by the name the Texas Kid. The ranch hand got to his feet, and all the killers now joined the shooting. To everyone's astonishment, Champion rushed from the house, firing his Winchester. He grabbed an arm of his worker and dragged him back through the front door. Champion realized his situation was hopeless, as he was surrounded and he had no means of escape. He sat down with the young man who was bleeding to death on the floor. Determined to leave a record, he started writing what had happened. Me and Nick Ray was getting breakfast when the attack took place. 2 men were here with us, Bill Jones and another man. The old man went after water and did not come back. His friend went out to see what was the matter, and he did not come back. Nick started out, and I told him to look out, that I thought there was someone at the stable and would not let them come back. Nick is shot, but not dead yet. He's awful sick. I must go and wait on him. It's now about 2 hours since the first shot. Nick is still alive. They're still shooting and are all around the house. Boys, there's bullets coming in like hail. Them fellows is in such shape I can't get at them. They're shooting from the stable and river and back of the house. Nick is dead. He died about 9 o'clock. Boys, I feel pretty lonesome just now. I wish there was someone here with me so we could watch all sides at once. Well, just then a wagon appeared on the road close to the house, followed by a rider. They were neighbors of Champion. The assassins now turned their guns on them, but the duo were some distance off and were able to get away once they cut the reins of the horses and the wagon abandoned. The two men galloped off to raise the alarm. Champion had seen the commotion, but was too far away to see that the men were his friends. He continues, "It's about 3 o'clock now. There was a man in a buckboard and one on horseback just past. They fired on them as they went by. I don't know if they killed them or not. I've seen lots of men come out on horses on the other side of the river and take after them. I shot at the men in the stable just now. Don't know if I got any or not, but I must go and look out again." In reality, he had actually shot 4 Texans. It don't look as if there is much show of my getting away. I see 12 or 15 men. I hope they did not catch them fellows that run over the bridge toward Smith's. They're shooting at the house now. If I had a pair of glasses, I believe I would know some of those men. One of the men he thought he knew was Frank Canton. Months earlier, Frank had tried to ambush Champion and had lost his Winchester Model 1886 in the process. The rifle was picked up by Champion, and he was now, months later, using it against its original owner. Well, they've just got through shelling the house like hail. I heard them splitting wood. I guess they're gonna fire the house tonight. I think I will make a break when night comes, if I'm still alive. Frank Canton and a few men retrieved the abandoned wagon, filled it with hay, and pushed it towards the house as others fired into the windows. As they got closer, they set the hay on fire and slammed the wagon into the wall of the building. As the house caught fire and started to collapse around him, Champion made his way to a door with a revolver in one hand and his Winchester in the other. He made a dash for freedom towards the ravine. Bullets flew and crashed into the ground around him, but he remained upright and running. As he jumped into the ravine, he came face to face with a number of the killers who cut him down immediately, riddled with over 20 bullets. Frank Canton retrieved his rifle from the body of Champion and had the reporter, who had been brought along to document the killing of the rustlers, place a sign on the body that read, "Cattle Thieves Beware." He also removed the notepad from Champion's breast pocket, bloody and damaged by bullets. The last page entry read, "The house is all fired. Goodbye, boys, if I never see you again. Nathan D. Champion." The invaders now moved on to the ranch, but little did they know that the 2 men from the wagon had raised the alarm in Buffalo. Now hundreds of local men were riding out to take on these hired Texas killers. The Texas mercenaries were now the ones under attack, and they were holed up and surrounded in the ranch buildings. 300 local men turned up to fight. Neither side could gain an inch with good cover on both sides. After a few days, the townsfolk and ranchers lashed logs to the front of 2 Studebaker wagons. The idea was to use the wagons as cover so they could get closer to the buildings to set them on fire. The plan would never be put into action, as U.S. President Harrison had just ordered the Army to intervene in the battle. The Texas assassins were extremely relieved when the U.S. cavalry galloped up the road to put an end to the fight. The killers were allowed to leave. No one was arrested, and they were taken to Fort McKinney. Here they were treated like heroes by the governor and his cattle baron friends. The cattle barons influenced the newspapers, so they portrayed the mercenaries as white knights, here to clean up the county of thieves and evildoers. The killers were eventually sent home after being free to party in saloons, and no one was ever convicted of the murders. Frank moved on to Oklahoma, where he became a deputy U.S. Marshal, rounding up Oklahoma outlaw gangs. He worked alongside men like Bass Reeves, Heck Thomas, Chris Madsen, and Bill Tilghman. In the town of Pawnee, he met outlaw Bill Dunn on the street. Frank said of the encounter, Dunn said, "Darn you, Canton, I'm going to kill you," as he reached for his gun. Well, Frank was faster and sent a bullet crashing into Dunn's forehead, killing him instantly. Frank stayed in law enforcement until 1907, when he was asked by the governor of Oklahoma to become the Adjutant General, a position he held until 1916. Frank died of cancer in 1926. After Frank became Adjutant General, he traveled to Wyoming to confess his crimes from all those years before. The governor took his long service to the community into consideration and gave Frank a full pardon.